March is finally here, which means spring is just around the corner. So let's take a look at how February went first in the housing market in Dupage and Cook County. We started off the year consistent and we are progressively staying in a consistent market even in February. The most surprising thing about all this is how much interest rates have fluctuated, but how consistent the market has stayed. Ever since the end of 2022, we saw interest rates go up near 7%, and then in January, they dived close to about 6%, and now they're back up to about 6.5%, close to 7% now here in March. So even though interest rates have fluctuated, we are still seeing demand out there and we're still seeing buyers come to the market to buy inventory, especially as we head into the springtime. If we look at the facts in February, the home prices in February relatively stayed the same month over month. We didn't really see much of a change. They really changed within $10,000 in both Dupage and Cook County. When we're talking about homes in the housing market, a $10,000 range here in the Chicagoland area isn't really anything significant, so it's not really much that we need to touch on other than we're consistent month over month from January to February. Now let's talk about how long homes sat on the market. We want to keep taking a look at this because we want to see how long homes are waiting before they get snatched up by buyers. And honestly, we continue to stay consistent in Dupage County. Cook County was a different story. If we look at Dupage County, houses stayed on the market the same exact days as we saw in January. About 1 or 2 day change difference, but really we saw houses on the market just as long as we did in January. But in Cook County, we saw homes stay on the market for 2 weeks longer than we did in January. So we're still seeing this shift of people coming from Cook County to Dupage and other suburb markets. So we'll continue to track this trend to see if this is still something happening even after COVID, and if people are still trying to leave Cook County to go to other suburbs even after the pandemic. Now let's close this out by something that is surprising, which is how many people went to look at houses this last month. We like to use shows per listing. How many people went out, showed up to a house to look at it in February? And the crazy thing is, we saw this explode even more. January we saw a huge hike, and in February it continued to go up. In Cook County we had nearly 10 showings per listing. 10 people would come out and take a look at every one home on the market. In Dupage County we saw almost 17 showings per listing. Again, this number is huge compared to where we ended last year. And if we look at last summer, this is more than we saw in June, more than we saw in July. This is more showings than we saw last summer in the Chicagoland area, which is crazy considering it's February. To put it into context, the last time we saw this many showings per home on the market was before we saw these rate hikes and when interest rates were close to 3 and 4%. So what does this tell us? This tells us there's still a market out there for buyers looking for houses, and they're active and they are strong going into the spring market here in the Chicagoland area. We're seeing a consistent and stable market when it comes to pricing. So if you're a seller thinking and contemplating about putting your home on the market this year, don't be too worried, at least not right now, about pricing taking a hit, because it has been consistently stable for the past 3 to 4 months. Now, if you're a buyer looking for a property soon or planning on looking for something this summer, please be competitive and assertive if you find the house that you love. If it's a house that you're not totally in love with but you would like, it's okay to sleep on it, take your time. But if you see a house that you absolutely love and you'd be heartbroken if you lost it, please try not to sleep on it and take decisive action so that you can make sure that you stay ahead of the competition. Because as we're seeing with showings, there is competition even at this time of the year. So that's how February went in the housing market here in the Chicagoland area. So if you want to stay ahead, you want to keep ahead of the trends, you want to know what's going on before anybody else, make sure you keep following and listening along so that you can stay informed on what's happening here in your backyard in the housing market.